Hey guys, Fred Wellman from the MeidasTouch Network, host of On the Mox with FPWellman every Friday night. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I did a piece about how Ron DeSantis' launch went so badly. The very first poll that came out showed that his numbers were going down instead of up, that when people found out about his agenda, he lost 6 points. And I thought it couldn't get worse, but we're talking Ron DeSantis, and well, he's deflating. Okay. And so how does it look? So it's been 2 weeks since we talked about that. And more folks have joined the GOP race. Obviously, Chris Christie's in there causing a ruckus. Some rando guy is a governor out west. Everybody's in on it now. It's the cool. Oh, the mayor of Miami jumped in. Everybody's running for GOP presidential nomination. I mean, how can you resist? So the thing is, DeSantis is in free fall. I mean, his numbers are tanking and they are spending hundreds of millions of dollars. I read a story today that dropped $100 million to knock doors. They sent 120 paid campaign staffers to walk in a parade in Waterloo, Iowa, much to their chagrin, because the folks in Iowa said they could only send 5 or 6. He sent 100 people to a small town in Iowa. I mean, it is just nuts. So what does that look like? Well, we'll start with some polling, right? We got to have some polls. Civics came out and Civics came out of the poll. Their polling just shows his favorability has cratered. He is down, let's see, he's down at 36% favorability versus just 55% unfavorable. It's gone down some 19 points since November when he launched when he won his reelection. It's just a steady decline. And Morning Consult came out with a one this week. They're showing that he's had a 19% is where he's polling at versus Trump, just 19. Just one bad poll after another. But what was really interesting to me was Navigator came out with one. And Navigator took the snapshot from when he started his Disney fight all the way till now. So they layered in the Disney fight, they layered in his presidential launch, and the numbers are just not great for Ron. And so let's start with his launch first, right? Obviously, campaign launch. You want to get some big numbers, make a big splash. And if you remember, DeSantis made this weird decision to launch on a Twitter space with Elon Musk. And it was plagued by problems from the start. But more than that is this lack of understanding that Twitter is a closed space, that Twitter it doesn't have the entire population on it. Even with millions of people on Twitter, it's an international thing. Look, the Villages in Florida is not full of Twitter users. Let's just be very clear on that, okay? My, family members, I have family members in their 80s. They are not on Twitter, okay? They're on Fox, but they're not on Twitter. And so that decision, and then all the problems came with it, it went out. So the story of his launch ended up being how badly it went. And this Navigator poll found that of the people they polled, just 34% overall said it did well. Okay, his launch. And frankly, only 53% of Republicans thought it went well. I mean, okay, it's a launch. That's like basic 101. How do you launch a campaign? That's like, if you can't launch a campaign, how are you going to run a freaking White House? But let's go on. But what's really interesting about that is how many people have heard about it since then, right? And oddly, more Democrats, probably you minus Mighty, by the way, more Democrats have heard about his launch than Republicans. Only 23% of Republicans in the poll said they'd heard a lot about his launch. Okay, it's not great. So where does that leave him? Well, they go on to talk about his Disney fight. So since he took on Disney, he has dropped 19%. And is right now only polling at a 32% favorability rating. And Disney's has held steady. Over 2/3 of people polled support Disney in this fight versus DeSantis. So he's picked a fight with Walt Disney Corporation, one of the largest companies in the world or the country and the largest in the state, thinking he could really take him on. This would be his big fight. And it's not going well because, the thing is, people like freaking Disney. I mean, have you ever met a Disney adult? They're really passionate about Disney and not as passionate about a guy who is kind of a bristly jerk. And so it shows in these polls. In November 22, let's start with the difference. In November 22, he had a plus 2% favorability rating. In other words, he was like 52, 48, or 50, 40, whatever it may be. But he was positive favorability. Just 7 months later, he has a ridiculous minus 16 favorability rating. Favorability ratio, minus 16 favorability ratio. That's what happens in November. He won re-election. He launched a presidential campaign. He launched a book tour. And with all that money, he spent millions of dollars. He's gone down 18 points in his favorability ratio. It's incredible. So, and here's the thing, the key to everything, right, is we know the Republican Party is not big enough. Only 22% of independents find him favorable. Democrats hate him, independents hate him, and not enough Republicans like him. So it really is not going well. But here's where it gets really interesting too, is the Disney fight. As I mentioned already, it was going badly for him. But beyond the Disney fight, of course, that's one of his big policies, right? His big policy was to take on Disney and their woke agenda. If you remember from the last time I did one of these videos, we showed in the poll, what they did in this poll was they read 6 policy accomplishments and told them what they were from. I don't know if you heard, they've made companies in Florida, if they have over 25 employees, they have to use E-Verify to check their immigration status. And this has caused a gigantic problem in the agricultural industry in Florida and caused problems for a lot of businesses in Florida, construction, you name it, because they were using migrants. And now they can't because they have to use E-Verify to check their citizenship. That includes his abortion ban, the 6-week abortion ban, the book bans, all those things. So we saw that the points went down. Well, now we have another poll, and the Navigator poll came out, and it showed that his entire pitch, because his big pitch is he wants to make America Florida, right? You could take the Florida model, make it America. And holy crap, is that not working? His pitch is only, let's see, from April to now has fallen. Only 29% of Americans found that appealing versus 48% who found it unappealing. And that's really significant because what that says is, I'll look at this number for you. It's on my screen here. What shows you is people don't like his plans. People don't want it to be Florida. In April, he was at that appeal. That was a -2 ratio. That's fallen to -19. So 17% drop of people who want to model Florida as America. Just 12% of Democrats, 18% of independents, and only 53% of Republicans want America Florida. And what's really interesting when you dig in the numbers, I love digging in polls. I had John Del Volpe on my show. If you haven't caught it, it's great, a couple months ago. Even white recipients of the poll only gave it 31% was appealing to them to make America Florida. So his entire campaign theme is that we're going to make America Florida, and nobody wants it, right? And it's not getting better. I mean, honestly, I'd be less, direct in this if there's any kind of softness in these polls. There's no softness, guys. These polls are plummeting. And the more people learn about Ron DeSantis, the less they like him. And they're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to convince us that he's inevitable, that he's sent by God, for God's sake. But the fact is, his numbers are cratering more and more. And the final one we know is, and this is where it really gets crazy. So in New Hampshire, they did a poll. The New Hampshire Journal did a poll with an organization called Coefficient Polling. And DeSantis is only polling at 13% versus Trump's 47%. But here's the part that will really bake your brain. Chris Christie is polling at 9%. Right behind DeSantis. So DeSantis has been trying to frame this inevitable march as the heir to the throne of Trump. Chris Christie's come in saying, F all that. Trump's a mess. Just announced, and where did Chris Christie announce his campaign? In New Hampshire, with a focus on New Hampshire. And he's within 4 points of DeSantis in the very first poll that came out in New Hampshire, comparing the two. DeSantis deflating. It's terrible policies mixed with a terrible candidate, and I think a really badly run campaign. And they're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars. And I'm going to tell you a secret. The strategist, Jeff Rowe, and his entire company, Axiom Strategies, look them up. There's some stories in Washington Post about them. They're still going to make all their money, but they're flailing, folks, and it ain't looking good. Anyway, Ron DeSantis, keep up the great work, man. You're doing great. We're proud of you. In the meantime, I hope you catch my show on Democracy with FPWellman Friday nights right here in the MeidasTouch Network. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, Meidas Mighty. Love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.